sorry things turned out the way that they did last night, but he was going so good up until that point.
It looked so good.
Right? It was such a bummer, but he was freaking incredible. He's just such a freaking beast. And like, yeah, I'm super bummed and disappointed, but it wasn't him. There was no fault of his in that. We walked it for the first round. We walked it in a 6, and then everyone was like, do it in the 5 for the jump off. And he can open up his stride and have a big horse stride, but that's if we're galloping on cross country.
Right.
And
right.
I just should have stuck with that, and been, the 6 is right there for him. And he's so quick everywhere else. He could have made it up easily.
Yeah.
So, hindsight 2020, but he thinks he did a great job, and he did. So he was a wild man. I don't know if you guys saw him at all, but he was freaking
well. So we were actually sitting 3 rows or 2 rows behind your whole family, and I didn't realize it.
No way.
Until you came in the ring the first time, and your brother was so excited. And I was like, oh my God, our family's right there. So I actually did a little video of some of their reactions while you were doing your first round, and it's so sweet.
Oh, that's so cute.
Because I know they're like so involved in your progress and everything like that. So it's really cool.
Yeah, they're the best. But yeah, he was wild. Like, I had him in warm up, and the first people started going in, and when the crowd started cheering and clapping, he was losing his mind. Like, just like, I'm back on the track. I don't know what's happening. Like,
oh my God.
He looked pretty like chill during the ring familiarization. I mean, he was just walking around for the most part. It seemed like he handled that really well.
Yes. And it's funny because I told my friend, maybe bring the chain just in case, because he can either be really great or he an absolute terror. So I don't know which one to have.
Right. And you don't want to be in the situation where you don't have the chain handy.
Exactly. Right. I was just start with it, and hopefully he'll be good. So, and he was
So I will say that ring definitely, when you're in there and people are cheering, creates an atmosphere that you can't replicate anywhere else, really.
Oh my God. No, not at all. And that was the thing. He'd never seen anything like that. And to be under the lights. And I think that was another thing with the jump off too that I didn't quite take into consideration enough, was how much the change in lighting affects them too. Again, I didn't give him the ride he needed, but it changes the ride with the lighting too.
Well, you saw that with the other horses as well, was when they were going in the direction of the office, because the sun was also setting, but then they had those great big floodlights, and the lighting gets really tricky. It's like when you're driving at twilight and everything kind of has like a glow around it or something. So he was definitely not the only one that got a little caught out by that. So
you could see it with a lot of the horses, actually. They just weren't quite reading the fences quite the same. Like, there was a lot of like here and there.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, big congratulations for getting in there and giving it your best try, though, because I feel you guys were definitely competitive in your own right against all of those big players there. So
yeah, that was a little intimidating, but yeah, I definitely want to take him back next year, because I do think he's so quick, and I think he could win it, honestly.
I think so too.
So we're going to keep going, and we're going to try and go to some other ones too. I know there's one in Canada that they do. So we'll try and get to some other arena eventing venues, because I think we'll keep there.
Awesome. Well, we'll start our episode. We'll probably leave some of that in because it's just good.
I was going to say, let's not waste all the good stuff. But
I know, exactly, because we have so much to cover with you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to OTTB on Tap. I'm Niamh.
And I'm Emily. Hey, Niamh, what's on tap today?
Today, we're chatting with up-and-coming 3-star rider Kirsten Schuitema. We mentioned Kirsten in episode 23 when we talked about some of our favorite OTTBs. Kirsten, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you on the pod.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's kind of start from the beginning, because even though I've been following your journey for a while and we've been big fans of yours, I actually don't know that much about your early days, except for I knew the barn that you grew up riding in. We had that little crossover. So just talk to us a little bit about how you got involved in riding and then kind of making your way into the eventing world.
Yeah, so my family was not super horsey. My mom rode a little bit when she was younger with her sister, but not really a whole lot. So not big horse enthusiasts, but my oldest brother has Down syndrome, and he rode at a therapeutic riding facility when he was little to help with his development.
Mhm.
And I would always go with my mom. I was probably 5 years old at the time. And I just was obsessed with the horses. I was like, I want to ride. Like, Mom, can I do it? Can I ride? And she's like, no, this is for your brother. But I would volunteer and I would lead the horses when I could. And I pretty much did whatever I could to be there a lot. And it was cool because my sister and I both ended up going and kind of helping out there together. It was right behind our house. So we would just walk there all the time and wherever we could. And it was actually a woman, her name's Erin Hurley, and she did a lot with off the track thoroughbreds and restarting them. And so I was exposed to thoroughbreds at a pretty young age, and she was an eventer. So right off the bat, I was introduced to eventing. So I think I was around 8 when I really was allowed to like kind of be riding. And then, yeah, I was just obsessed with it. And so my sister and I, we were literally there like every single day. I don't think I had very many friends because I was just at the barn all the time with the horses. And pretty much that was my life for a long time. But we pretty much rode like school ponies and stuff. And then my parents bought my sister and I a little Mustang pony named Lucky.
No way.
Yeah. And he was crazy. I always say everybody should have a pony, like a naughty pony in their life. They just teach you everything and they humble you. And it's good because they're small when you're small. So they're not quite as dangerous, I guess.
That might be debatable.
That's debatable. Yeah. Maybe sometimes ponies are worse, I feel like. But yeah, he actually reminds me a lot of Tango, like very similar personalities and just very opinionated. He would drag us around the ring and we're just holding on, but he was awesome. And so we shared him and we kind of started eventing on this little Mustang pony. Had 20s all the time because he was just such a little brat. He was like, drag cars around. And I think he did the hunters before eventing. So it was like very much not what trained to do. So yeah, it was quite a fun experience with him. But then from there, we moved to the farm. I think that Niamh, that you know about Bit of Woods with Megan and Lauren McCaffrey. And that's where we kind of started to get a more into the showing, and I ended up growing out of the pony and I leased a couple horses for a while, competed up through the novice level. And then when I was about 15, I actually stopped riding cold turkey. I was going through a lot in high school. High school fucking sucks. Sorry. Probably shouldn't curse.
That's okay.
But yeah, so I just felt like I needed to figure myself out. And so I stopped riding, and I did not look at, touch, ride, involve myself at all in horses again until I was out of college and had a stable job that I could kind of do it myself and support it myself. So yeah, I didn't get back into horses until I think I was 23. So 8 years.
That's a significant break.
Yeah. 8 years I did nothing with the horses. So, but then I went back to Bit of Woods. I started taking lessons on some of the school horses. And then I ended up leasing a horse with a really good friend of mine. And then it kind of became the time where I was like, I kind of want something of my own. And that's when it was funny. I hadn't really started looking yet. And one of the girls in the barn had gone and tried Tango, or Nolan at the time. And she really liked him, but she had just lost a horse and he looked a lot like that horse. And she couldn't do it. Yeah. And so I ended up trying him and I just I fell in love with him. I didn't know really anything at the time. I didn't know what I was sitting on. I had no clue, but I just loved his personality. I always liked a little bit of a hot, opinionated horse, and he definitely had that in him.
Yes. I remember when you got on him, when you came out to see him, and we were like, oh, this is perfect. This seemed like such a match right from the start, which was really, really cool to see how well you guys clicked almost immediately.
And because we hadn't really advertised him yet at that stage, it was through my friend that knew you guys. I knew she was kind of looking for a horse, and that's how that momentum kind of even started. So at that point, we hadn't even made a sales ad for him or anything. So it was very serendipitous. I think that you came out and tried him. And I think he did pull some squirrely maneuvers when you tried him, or maybe that was one of your friends. I can't remember.
Yeah. I think he did more. I remember he did more with one of my friends. I think she maybe even fell off of him when she tried him. But he kept it pretty tame for me. And then I remember when he got home, he definitely started pulling some stuff. But I was like, this is good.
Yeah, you're perfect. So was that about the time that you were going to go and do your first working student position?
Yep. So I had been working some corporate jobs, and then at that point, I had started working for Princeton Show Jumping, and I was doing horse show coordinating for them. By that point, I was like, you know what? I really want to get back into the horses. How can I make that my career? And so I was doing that. And it was always my dream when I was younger to be a professional rider. And I got away from that dream because life. And then I had Tango, and I was like, no, you know what? This is what I want to do with my life. And I think I was quite lucky in going to college and getting those experiences and getting that life experience, because I think a lot of people miss that. They start riding young and they're go, and they're trying to do the U25s and all the things that are going to put you on that kind of fast track to becoming a professional, becoming a top rider, but you miss out a lot on life and learning about what it is to be able to run a business, to do something that you love, but be able to make it doable and workable in your life. And so I'm really glad that I went to college and had the experiences that I did there, even if there's definitely days where I'm like, oh my God, I'm 31. I'm way past all of the young rider stuff, which can be a little bit frustrating sometimes because I wish I could do these things. I have access to these things. But anyway, so I was working corporate, then I went to Princeton, and then I was like, nope, I want to get in on this. I want to do the riding. So, and Megan Papler, my trainer, she knew Shannon Baker, who was at the time an adult amateur that was looking for a working student she's based in New Hampshire in the winter and then Ocala in the summer. And I called her and talked to her, and we hit it off really well. And it sounded like exactly what I was looking for. And I think it was good too, because I was just a novice rider. I hadn't seen anything or done anything. And I'd been out of the horses for so long. So I think I needed something that wasn't a super high caliber professional barn right off the bat. Right. They would have just been like, who is this person? She knows absolutely nothing. But so it was a really nice first position to be in. And I learned so much about, an introduction to upper level eventing. I remember I went right before the Jockey Club, and literally my first day there, I got to Florida, and the next day was the Jockey Club, and I was there helping. And it was the first time I had seen an FEI event.
Wow.
And I was just kind of thrown in the mix. And I remember the vet box, and I was like, oh, it was the craziest thing. I thought it was so cool. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this existed. I knew it existed, but I didn't know what. Yeah. I was like, this is insane. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. So yeah. And, learned a lot in my time there, and progressed pretty quickly with Tango. I think we were going beginner novice when we got there, and kind of just moved right along with him.
Yeah, and you did the Young Event Horse series with him as well, right?
So we did do some of the Young Event, and I think we were qualified, but I mean, it's probably a blessing in disguise that we didn't make it, because I was very much not ready or prepared for that. Yeah. I probably would have been really disappointed that we wouldn't probably score very well against all the warm bloods and the Irish sport horses that were out there. And little Tango, this little kid, barely do a dressage test still. But yeah, so we did try. We had plans to go to the Young Event Horse, but it just didn't end up working out, unfortunately. Again, I think it was probably a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because I was like, I'm going to win or get really high placing and get the grant to go to Les Lions in 2 years after that. I've always had very high hopes and expectations. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's not a good thing because things don't always work out. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? But
well, so tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you had with him. So he was really your first pretty raw off the track thoroughbred that you basically did everything with from the get-go. Maybe just for our listeners, because I did explain his personality and some of his traits in our previous episode, but I think you can go into much more detail about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's kind of what people would think of as a typical thoroughbred, who they're a little bit tight and tense, and especially in the dressage, trying to get the movement out of them is more difficult. A lot of them aren't always as lateral as some of the other breeds out there. And he definitely was one of the lateral is not something very much in his vocabulary or that he wants to do. But he was very opinionated. And I was also quite green. And so it was a lot of learning for the both of us. And so that was a whole another element in itself that makes it difficult. But he's one that in our training and as we would try to put the pressure on, like very opinionated. His move, like go-to move was to levade whenever you asked him to do something he didn't want to. All four off the floor, like 5 feet in the air, would just leap into the air and constantly would just do it. And with no effort. And literally jumped 5 feet in the air. And that was another thing. I was like, well, he's going to jump.
Yeah.
And so that, in a little bit still to this day, he'll pull that every once in a while. Like if he like, that's a little bit hard. I don't think I want to do that. And then in the jumping, it's kind of the same thing and something we've struggled with over the years as we've gone up the levels is he's pretty sure of himself, I'd say, like in himself. I think he might have a little bit of a Napoleon complex. He's small, he's 15'3". So in the beginning I had a little bit of a hard time because he was like, if you don't get me here, if you don't get it perfect, I'm gonna be like, yeah, you know what? I don't think I need to do that. So we would have 20s or we would have 40s. But I think that was also really a good thing, like another kind of a blessing in disguise, because you learn how to ride through that. You learn what to get the horse to trust you and trust what you're asking of them and get them to work through that and get really to work through it for both of you.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. It can be hard when it's green and green and he's green, I'm green. So you're both learning at the same time. So it takes longer and it can be more frustrating for sure. But I also think in the long run, it develops a really good partnership and a really good trust in the two of you. And I think it depends on the horse too.
I feel like you want a horse that isn't going to jump just because you sent it at a fence, because if they don't have self-preservation or the ability to say, it's not quite right and this is not good for both of us. And you see it all the time with 5-star horses that the rider gets it wrong or the horse feels like this isn't good, and you have that 20 or, like you say. And
absolutely. At the end of the day, like eventing can be a dangerous sport, and you want a horse that is going to keep you both safe and that's smart and thoughtful about what it's doing. And he's very careful, as I'm sure if you've ever watched him show jump, he's like, nee. I mean, he doesn't tuck his knees at all. He just jumps higher.
No, I know exactly. He's very unorthodox. He's reminds me a little bit of Emily Hamill's horse, Corvette. Mm-hmm. He's not quite as he doesn't have as much hang time in the air as Corvette, but it's a similar, I'll just jump bigger.
I'm just going higher. It's all good. Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. It's funny because when I worked for Philip, she was at the farm as well. And I would watch her on Corvette and I was like, I want to sit on that horse. That feels like 1 and 2, because I feel like it is a little bit similar to Tango. I mean, Corvette you look at and it's like, oh my, it's quite unbelievable. But Tango is similar in the way that he does it too.
He's very lofty.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of arc in there.
Yeah.
Can you speak to a little bit of at what point in your collective experience that you kind of knew you had something special together? Was there any particular time period or event where you were like, we could really go and do the big things that I want to do together.
I mean, I think in a little bit in my naivety, I thought that pretty early on, just because I was hungry for it. And he always had a lot of heart. He wanted to do the job and he wanted to go out there and do a good job. He always gives it 110%, even if, you know, the dressage isn't great or whatever. He's excited about the job, which I think is a huge part of it. And he just happens to be crazy athletic as well. And I remember, you know, once the fences started getting bigger, and I mean, he was really the first horse that I sat on probably ever that like really like showed me what scope really felt like. And to this day, when I get on a horse like and jump it for the first time, if it's something I'm trying either for myself or for someone else, that's what I compare the jump to.
Yeah.
Does it have that feeling?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say pretty early, like, I really thought we were going to go and win the Young Event Horse Championships and go to Les Lions. So
yeah,
I was pretty high on him from the beginning. I wouldn't say there was any specific thing. I just believed in him.
You just knew.
He just has that quality,
that special quality. Yeah. And then after you left working for Shannon, what did you do at that point?
So I freelanced for a little while. I rode thoroughbreds in the morning, breezed them at the track. That was quite
fun.
Yeah. I did that for about 6 months, and it's crazy. It's really crazy.
Where did you do that? Was that down in Florida?
Yep, down in Ocala. I was still based in Ocala, and yeah, it was a wild time. That was the first time I got flipped over on, was at the track, and like walking a horse back from galloping, and her owners were there and everything, and they were like, "Can we stop and take a picture with her real quick?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so we like stopped, and I think that just kind of like set her over the edge, and then she just bolted, went up, and like just back. So
oh my god,
and like she was fine. Like she got right up, ran home, and I was lucky. I was fine. My helmet cracked. Everyone thought I like broke my neck because of the crack that the helmet made. But god. I was totally fine. I think I may have broken a rib too. I never actually went out and got it checked, but like, I was fine. But yeah, I mean, it's exhilarating, but I got run off with, and that was terrifying. And I don't think I need to breeze race horses again as much. I love OTTBs, and I love like restarting them. Doing it at the track was a little bit much for me. It's just a lot. So bless those jockeys, because it is a whole nother ballgame when you're working with those young horses and breezing them. That was a whole nother exposure to what young horses can be. And yeah, it was a wild time. But
there was a girl that we used to buy, not a girl, a woman that we used to buy horses from, who I think now is permanently based down in Ocala, Megan Fadlovich.
Okay.
And she was an exercise rider. So it was really cool when you'd get horses from her, because she could tell you actually what they were like to ride.
Yeah. And so that is really cool. I was lucky. The other thoroughbred that I have right now came from Graham and Anita Motion right here in Fair Hill. And
nice.
One of the girls that worked at Phillips at the time also was exercise riding there, and she knew him. So yeah, it is always cool to see. They kind of have a background on them, and Graham and Anita were very forthcoming about all that he was. But yeah, so I was freelancing there for a bit. I worked, I spent a little time working for Hallie Kuhn while I was there. And after that, I moved back to New Jersey. I was like, all right, I got to figure out, like, I wanted the exposure to an upper level rider program, someone that was, you know, a successful 5-star rider. And I just hadn't quite figured out how to do that yet, because it's hard. I needed a paying job.
Right.
It can be hard with the professionals. Like, they're not always paying what you would get from an amateur, because it's just a different, like, there's so much to be learned from them. So that's part of your pay is the lessons and what you're getting out of it.
Right.
So I was trying to figure out how to do that and who to go to for that, and how I could afford it, really. Like, when it's all said and done, it's all about being able to afford it and the horses.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. So like, I was living at home again. I had my horses at my aunt had a farm and horses. It was just Tango at the time. So it was me and Tango. He was at this little backyard farm, and I was just trying to figure it out. I would ship into Bitterwood sometimes to use their facilities. Mm-hmm. And I got a call from Alex Green, and she was like, hey, I heard Philip is looking for someone to do part-time in the barn and then part-time helping with Lily. And she was like, I thought about you. And I was like, oh, that's actually really interesting, because that could give me the ability to afford it and the exposure I want to a 5-star facility. So I went and talked to Philip and Evie, and pretty much that day, I think we all knew. We were like, yep, this is perfect. And my brother has special needs, and I grew up with people with special needs my whole life. And I went to college to be a physician's assistant, so I had a medical background too, a little bit.
Yeah.
And it kind of just worked out. And so then Tango and I went to Phillips, and I worked part-time with Lily, and that's how I was able to afford it and keep going. And learning from literally one of the best there is in the sport. So pretty lucky.
That's really incredible. And I think it's really cool that your two worlds kind of mix that way, because I know how crucial your family is in terms of your life, your horses. And we were saying off mic before when we weren't recording, your family is immersed in your experience. And it's really kind of a beautiful thing that you got to go and work and use all of your experience with his family.
Yeah, that was something I think was also really special about working there. I'm still very close with the family. I really consider them to be an extended part of my family. And I love Lily, and Liv and I are still very good friends, and we talk all the time. And again, like Philip and Evie, I saw, it was nice. I ran into them at Devon last night. It's so nice to have people like that in the industry too, that are on your side and just there for you, that you got close with. And it made for a special relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you've won some pretty great accolades with Tango so far. The TIP High Point Award at the AECs at Modified, the Root and Riddle Award. And you did a Horse of the Year award as well?
Yep. In 2017, I think it was, he won the Thoroughbred Horses in Sport Year-End Award for rookie eventing. So yeah, he was the #1 rookie thoroughbred in the country.
That's so cool.
Really, that's special.
So you get to Modified, and then what were your goals at that stage?
Well, first of all, I had a huge wrench thrown in my plans with that. I was still working for Shannon at the time. I went to Bromont, and I was leading one of her horses back from the jog, and it jumped up and landed on my foot and shattered my foot. And that was a month before the AECs. Oh, and this is crazy too. So Tango, this is just a funny, weird thing. I don't know like why. He won from novice up through intermediate. He won his first event out every single time. So like first won, his first training he won, his first prelim he won, his first intermediate he won. So like we were qualified very like quickly for AECs to go prelim, and then I broke my foot and 2 months before, and the doctor was like, I don't trust you not to like take off a boot. So she like put a hard cast on me. Like, so I was like, oh God. Like,
she knew.
I do.
See what riders are like.
Yeah. It's like, how could you do this to me?
That's kind of funny. They're like, I know you're going to take the boot off.
Yeah. And it was this crazy break. It's called a Lisfranc fracture, which I guess is very hard to do. And it was not great. And I walked on it for 2 weeks before. Walked on it for 2 weeks.
Of course you did.
Yeah, I was actually in a wedding too. I opted not to wear heels. I wore flip-flops. But it was the day after the wedding that I went and actually got an x-ray. And they couldn't really see anything other than a dislocation on the x-ray. So then like the podiatrist was like, we need you to get an MRI. And then I got the MRI and they're like, yeah, it's shattered. And I was like, okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And I was like, can we actually use this study to present to our students? Because this is very rare and it's really crazy that you've been just walking around on it. So that was like a huge bummer for me because I was like, I'm going to go prelim at the AECs. So then we ended up just going modified. And I had come out of the cast and I was in a boot still, a walking boot. But I was like, I'm riding. And so I was in my walking boot at the AECs and people were just like, what are you doing? But yeah, I don't even really remember the jump from modified to prelim being something that was that influential to me, I guess. I don't know. For me, the jump from prelim to intermediate was a bigger.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is getting serious. And again, I moved up pretty quickly through the levels up through intermediate. I think that happened in 3 years, which is crazy for someone who hadn't really competed at the level ever before. So like, I don't think that was necessarily the best, but you know, he was capable and we were going for it and we did it. And then I've spent now the past like 3.5 years at intermediate, like really really understanding what it means to be an upper level rider, to, you know, ride properly for the upper levels. And that is one thing that I'm so fortunate and lucky, and very lucky in having the horse that I have, because I think a lot of horses would hold a grudge a little bit again for some of the stuff that we went through. And I'm very lucky that he is not that way. And he, again, talking about self-preservation, he always kept us safe. And, you know, if I made a mistake, either he jumped us out of it or he said, you know what, we're not going to do that right now. We're not going to do that today. And there were times it was super frustrating, and water has always been like a thing for him. He never liked jumping into water. So I think at our second training, he stopped at the water. And then again, through the levels, like we started going prelim and he was stopping at water, and then we would get through it, or thought we would get through it. And then we up to the next level, intermediate, and then stopping at water. And then, you know, intermediate, again, it's pretty real. And
I think we went to the Carolina Horse Park a few years ago to watch a couple of friends compete. And seeing the water complex there, I mean, obviously we've been to a lot of different events in this area and everything like that, but the water complex there, I was like, this is
unreal.
Like the Olympics. Like,
what's crazy happening? So it took us a long time, really. Like, I would honestly say it wasn't until, what was the event?
I think we were watching the intermediate there and thought it was the advanced too. We were at the complex and we were like, oh God, this is tough. And then we're like, oh,
oh wow.
Not the advanced.
But I think it wasn't really until like the past year that I think I really figured out what it is to ride properly for the upper levels. And it really started to click. And that changed the way that Tango is going. And it changed his confidence. It changed everything in the way he goes now. And now it's funny, he always had no problem at the start box, like was always like just pretty chill. And now we get to the start box and he can't wait to get out. He's not bad, he holds it together, but we get in there and he's jumping to get out. So it's been, at times it feels like it's been a really long time at the level, but I think it's time that we needed and time that has gotten us to where we are. And I finally feel confident in the fact that we can properly move up. So that's a good place.
Can you define for us what you mean by ride properly at the upper levels? Is there a feeling or a position, or how would you say that you feel like now you're riding properly?
Yeah. So for me, it was the feeling of almost being like the horse dragging, like taking you around. I remember when I was younger and progressing in my training, and even more specifically in the dressage, where trainers would say, you want to feel like the horse is taking the bit from you and like dragging you along. And there would be times where I thought I felt that, but I'm feeling it. But like, I didn't feel that until probably the past year and a half, like actually feel it. And now like, there's no mud in the water of what that feels like to me. I'm like, oh no, that's what I'm going for. That's the feeling I need in the dressage, is where the horse is literally almost dragging me around, but in a, like I'm in control manner, but like they're taking the bit from you. And it's the same thing in the cross country, where there's no question really for me now of whether he's going. It's what you hear and what I've like been told since I was going novice. It's like the power has to come from behind, and they're like the impulsion. But it's crazy when it actually clicks and when you actually feel it. It's, again, like there would be times like you're training, when you're progressing in your training, your trainer's like, do you feel it? Do you feel it? And it's like, yes. Do I feel? I think I feel it. Yes.
Right.
But now like there's no question that I feel it. And I've gotten to the point where your leg is developed enough that you like produce it with your leg. And then like, you're like, okay, that's the feeling that I need. I think the first time really that it clicked was with Philip when he was like, even when you're out hacking, you know, get the horse in front of your leg, get them so that they're taking you somewhere. So it's not like you're just kind of kicking them along. It's like, you ask them to move forward, they move forward. And then that's that. And it's creating almost that will in the horse that like they want to be moving forward, you know? And that was something, this is like one of my favorite like quotes and something I kind of live by was I lessoned a little bit with David O'Connor, and he said that a good rider can make a horse do something. A good horseman can make it the horse's idea to do something. And so I always try and like kind of carry that into everything I do with the horses. You know, I want to be a horseman first and foremost. You know, the horse always should come first, and proper riding and proper training is that you're making it so that the horse is like, yep, this is what we're doing. This is what I want to do. And it's a crazy progression, and it is really good feeling when you get that, and it really clicks. And even in the dressage, it has really gotten so much better with Tango. I don't dread it like I used to. I actually really enjoy it. Even the days when I do just strictly flat work, I almost look forward to those more than jumping some days, because it is an incredible feeling when you're going proper. And I mean, I still have days where I'm like, what am I doing? I can't try for shit. But what's so special about horses, you know, I will never stop learning and will never stop progressing. And it's just cool every day to figure out, okay, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to do to get to the point where it's correct? And yeah, it's just what makes riding cool.
So who are you currently riding with, and are you permanently based up here now, or are you still going back and forth to Florida?
Yeah. So after I left Philip, I was working for Buck Davidson for a bit, and then I just moved back to Pennsylvania, and I'm out of Fox Mill Farm, which is owned by Colin Reynolds. Beautiful, beautiful farm. And I'm kind of figuring out who I want to train with. I haven't been like, okay, I have to train with this person. I'd love to get some like kind of strict dressage training, because I think that would be helpful for both of us. So I'd love to ride with a strictly dressage rider. And the great thing about the area is there's so many people, there's so many options.
Yeah.
It's just about kind of figuring out who clicks with us. And I'm riding right now also for Allie Rawls, and she does a lot of rehoming and restarting thoroughbreds. So that takes up a big chunk of my day is, you know, restarting those. And the cool thing about that is if there's something that comes through that is pretty quality, they're willing to have me kind of take it up through the levels and see what we can do with it. So that's a cool thing.
That's fun.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is really the hardest now in progressing further, is needing horses to ride, and I can't afford them myself, which, you know, who can? Most people can't. So finding people who are willing to support that dream and that goal and keep providing you with horses to try and get there with is really important. So I have Tango, and I have another horse, McLovin, the one that I mentioned earlier that came from Graham and Anita. And I got him, actually, he went to Philip to be something that Phil could produce. And I kind of restarted him and fell in love with him. I was like, this is really cool. He gave me the feeling that Tango gave me to jump. And
that's amazing.
And I was like, this is a good one. And he has proven to be really, really cool. So
did you have him for sale for a little bit, and then I think you moved him up another level, and it was like all of a sudden it was like, another gear switched on or something for him?
Yeah, for sure. So he's syndicated. I don't own him myself, but like we kind of bought him as maybe as an upper level prospect, but you know, also they all are for sale pretty much. You know, it has to be a business too. So you never know. And I really want to go to Europe at some point. So for a while I was like, all right, let me sell him. And the owners were willing to put that money towards going to Europe. So we were trying to kind of do that. And yeah, so He's a pretty laid back. He's completely different than Tango. He's huge. He's 16'3". He's super long. A very, very different ride. And so he like super chill, the chillest, just hanging out. He's like, whatever. He was one that more whoa than go. He was like, I just want to chill and walk around, not try too hard, but had all the pieces and was athletic. And the jump was the big, I was like, I know it's in there because I felt the first few jumps that we did on him. I was like, oh, there it is. But so, you know, starting out, he's kind of a lot of work to get moving. He's like, I'd rather just hang out. But then, and it was funny because you could put anyone on him, like literally anyone. When I would have people come out to try him, it was like the 14-year-olds who were just coming off a pony, and then they got on him. Mm-hmm. They were like, oh my God, he's amazing. He's so good. He would take care of anyone. But then it was really when he started going training, that's when it first starts getting like a little, you know, you're going to start preparing for prelim eventually, modified now, but then prelim, and something switched. And I think he got fitter too. He went from kind of just like chill, whatever guy to I have an opinion about everything. And he's like, let me do it. I got it. Like, and I took him, it was at Stable View it was just a couple months ago. What was that? March, maybe end of March, beginning of April, I think. And we had a 20 because I was just, oh my God. It was the first 3 fences. I was like, this is a proper horse. He was galloping out of stride to these big tables, way bigger than anything he'd ever seen. Like Staple View, they're pretty sizable. They're proper. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. I forgot that I was sitting on a green 6-year-old that has barely like put a combination together in his life. And we come up to these angled houses, and he just like, I'm on an intermediate horse, and goes over the first one and just doesn't even see the second one and just like goes right by. And I was like, yeah, I forgot. Just, he's a baby. But we finished the course from there, and he was incredible. And I just smiling the whole time, like, oh my gosh, this horse, he's serious. So that's
so cool.
It was so we'll see what happens with him. Technically, he's still for sale. Again, this has to be a business. You know, if I'm going to sustain doing this for my life, I got to make money somehow. And so, you know, if he sells, he sells. But I'm not really in any rush or push to get him sold because he's just so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you started to look into potentially syndicating Tango as well, or is that already in the works?
Yeah. Yep. So that was the other huge thing that I kind of came to, I guess, the realization is, especially when you start going the upper levels, like it gets more and more expensive. Yeah. I've been super lucky, knock on wood, a lot of wood, that he hasn't required maintenance. He's been super sound, which is wonderful and great. But there are things that I want to be able to do for him because he's at the upper levels and he deserves body work and all of the things. Really hard to afford all those things, and when you're out competing and the shows are getting more expensive and all that. So I really came to a realization that, okay, if this is going to be my life, if I'm going to strictly ride horses for a living, it's really not feasible for me to own them myself. That's not something I can afford to do. You know, I've talked to a bunch of different professionals and people who, you know, I was like, how do I do this? How am I going to make this work? And I think the biggest thing was owning your own horses is not really an option if you're funding yourself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you don't have, you know, like a trust fund or backing somewhere like that. So I was like, all right, I got to figure this out. And I was really upset for a while, like, oh my God, I have to sell Tango. Then I was like, no, I'm going to syndicate Tango. I'm going to try and syndicate Tango. And so, yeah, I put it out there, and I have one owner who's come in at 25%. So I'm still looking to get another 75% of him owned and taken care of. But for now, that at least gives me enough to get by for now.
Yeah.
And to hopefully find some more people who are interested. So yeah, if you know anybody, send him my way because he's really cool.
We definitely will.
He's just so special. And I really hope to have the opportunity to keep going with him for many more years to come.
I feel like if you guys could get to Europe as well, that the sky's the limit. He just seems like a horse that would thrive over there.
I think so.
In England, maybe specifically.
Yeah. So
that would be really cool.
Yeah. And that's a goal. And I think, again, a goal that may be a little bit easier if I get him syndicated, and I can use some of that to get over there. And if those owners are supportive of that. Yeah. So we'll see. It's all just day by day, and we take it day by day and do whatever we can to get there. And we have big plans for the rest of the season. He goes to Bromont in a couple weeks to do the 3 long, and then we're going to make the big move up. Yeah. So yeah.
Do you know where you're doing the move up?
I think we're going to do it at Millbrook. That is
okay.
The thought. So
I'll be at Bromont. So
oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, I'm going up with Natalia because I used to do some nannying for her.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, she was like, "Do you want to go to Bromont?" I was like, "Yes, of course I want to go to Bromont."
Yeah, who doesn't want to go to Bromont? It's amazing.
Yeah. So,
oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I just wanted to touch on one more point before we kind of wrap things up here, but I ride with Sally Cousins a fair bit, and I think her life story is really interesting because she was quite a talented young rider in her early days and got the opportunity to go to England when she was like 19 or 20 and came home. And she was like, I can't do this professionally. I can't afford to do it professionally. And she worked as a stockbroker for a long time. And then her story about finally deciding to switch to be a professional, I think is something that, like you said, so many people go straight from high school, they're homeschooled, and then they go right up to being a professional. And I'm sure that there are a lot of benefits to doing that. Like you said, like with some of the under 18, under 25 grants and support like that. But I think that for people that are in kind of your age bracket, maybe there aren't quite as many opportunities, financial backing opportunities. But I do think your message is a really good one in terms of having that self-realization of, okay, I should at least get a degree in something. I should at least, like you said, not missing out on the opportunities, the friendships, all of that kind of stuff.
Growth, yeah.
Yeah. So my question for you is, what advice would you give other young riders starting their careers, maybe being in that 18 to 24-year-old space in their lives?
Yeah. I think I would say, have a good balance of life and horses. I was fortunate and I kind of did the life thing separate. So then I was able to completely commit myself to the horses for the past 8 years or so, which I think is also important to get to that point. But at 18, you're still a kid, you're still learning, you're still growing. You need to know how to talk to people and present yourself to people and speak in front of people. I couldn't public speak to save my life when I got out of high school. By the time I was out of college, it was required that you take a public speaking class. And there was literally nothing that made me more nervous. In high school, I blacked out during a public speaking thing. I made it back to my seat. I don't remember anything. I completely blacked out. And then by the time I graduated college, I could public speak in front of a whole room of students. So I think there's a lot of life skills that are necessary to learn and to be successful. Even if your life is going to be horses, where you're still dealing with people. If you want to have a successful sales business, if you're going to be selling horses, you're going to be talking to people, you're going to be negotiating, you're going to be doing all these things. And I'm terrible at that. I'm not good at sales, but at least I've had exposure to it. And yeah, I would say, when you're young, to still expose yourself to real life. Not that horses aren't real life, but there's definitely a separation. Horses become everything that we forget about everything else. And it's like tunnel vision, but there has to be a balance. And it's the same thing with, you see a lot of young riders too that burn out of it. And it's because I think they did miss out on a lot of things and they didn't allow themselves to experience life. And then it becomes either they're bitter or they want to go experience those things. And the cool thing about horses, and what people said to me all the time, is that, okay, if you leave for a little while, you can come back and there's still going to be horses.
Be horses.
Yeah. And, even I run into things like, I wish I was further along. I wish I was here, there, wherever. I would love to be going to the Olympics tomorrow, but I'm not there yet. But the thing to remember is that, look at Philip. He's in his 60s and still to go to another Olympics, and he's been to 6 or 7 already. And that's the nice thing about horses too. It's not like all the other sports where your body gets to a point where you just can't physically do that anymore. That's unique to this sport, that you can do it for a long time. So, and a lot of the top riders out there are in their 40s or 50s. So plenty of time. Don't be in a rush. Enjoy life too, because that's important. We only have one life. So experience everything. And even if horses are a huge chunk of that, there's other parts too.
Well, that's great too. I think you touched on this, but the fact that you made that decision to come back, it's not like you got stuck in it.
Right.
And you could always go and you have other paths that you could travel if you needed to. So it's nice to have that safety net for sure.
Yeah,
and not just be stuck.
Yeah, you never know too with the world and where things are at. Who knows? It could be an apocalypse tomorrow too. So having as much experience and whatever is always good. So.
It's kind of something that I like to talk about with people a lot, especially younger people, because I do professionally what I went to college for. However, I quit my full-time job to become a working student when I was in my late 30s.
Yeah.
And I've recreated my career path so many times. And now I'm kind of working 3 separate jobs. And I love all of it. And then I started a podcast.
Yeah.
But I like this idea of, especially in the modern world, this acceptance of you can recreate yourself over and over again and start a new career at 40 or 50 or I love that. And I really support that for people, because I think that for the longest time, there was this like feeling of you have to know what you want to do when you come out of high school, and you're going to do that forever. And then that's your life, and you're going to get married and have children. And I just think opening yourself up to possibilities and opportunities and taking chances is something that I really implore like more people to do.
Yeah.
And to kind of jump, and the net's going to be there. So
right. Yeah, no, exactly. And allow yourself to be a different person than you were the day before, or not, but to know that this is your life. You can create exactly what you want out of it. And even if that means you're going to do something completely different tomorrow, that's fine. That's the decision that you get to make and that you should get to make, because, we have to live for ourselves at the end of the day. And we're the ones that has to be happy with who we are. So,
I don't want to leave us on an apocalyptic note. So my final question for you is, what do you love most about off the track thoroughbreds?
Oh gosh, probably their heart. God, you just don't get that in every breed. And you see it across all breeds, of course.
Yeah.
But I just think you see it so frequently in the off the track thoroughbreds. They want to do the job. They have such a work ethic. Yeah, they come to work every day and they're like, all right, what are we doing? But the heart is just, it's something like really incomparable. Then that's like with working at the other place that I'm at. It's literally all off the track thoroughbreds, and they're all so different, but they're also, at the end of the day, they're all horses, and they all have the same basic needs and wants. And that's cool too, is that side of that, not just the work. And there's personalities in all of them. And this is what makes horses so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always cool to see what they're good at. And always like Christmas morning unwrapping present when the new one would get off the trailer, and you get to see what, you might think what they're going to be like. But
and then getting to know them, getting to develop them, and being like, all right, I think this one will be good as a dressage horse. This one could go do Western pleasure. This one could be a hunter. Could be an event horse. There's so many different places for it. And that's something too. There's always this idea of, okay, this is exactly what a thoroughbred looks like and what it's going to be and where it's going to go. But really, there's such an array of off the track thoroughbreds. They don't all look the same. They don't all have the same abilities. And it's just cool to be able to figure out what it is that where you're going to tap in, that you pull out what they want to do and what they're going to go be special at. So yeah, it's just really rewarding.
Emily's typing in our notes right now, so I just got distracted. I'm like a goldfish. Okay, do you want to wrap things up, Emily?
And thanks for joining us again. How can listeners find you on social media to follow along on your journey or contact you to talk about potentially syndicating Tango?
Yeah, so Facebook is just my first and last name, Kirsten Schuitema. I should probably spell that because it's Kirsten.
And I keep mispronouncing your last name as well. So.
Oh, it's true. Everyone does. It's literally impossible. I used to, in high school, they called me Shoot 'em Up. Like what they shoot 'em up. So if that helps anyone,
that does help. Well, I like to say my name is Niamh, like Steve.
So yeah, the last name is Schuitema. So yeah, Kirsten Schuitema on Facebook, and then Instagram is k.schuitema, and I have a TikTok, but I really don't use it. I only did it because I felt like I should, because that's what like the cool kids are doing. But
you sound exactly like us. I need to hire like a 17-year-old like social media person.
Literally. So, I mean, you can follow me on TikTok if you want. I think it's just Kirsten Schuitema, but I don't do anything on there. Instagram is kind of my place to do the things. If you want to email me, my email is schuitema.equestrian@gmail.com. And I don't know. Should I give my phone number? I'm happy to give it. Like, is that weird? I'm like,
I mean, that might be weird.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good.
I don't want you to develop stalkers, or anything.
So email me, and we can get to the point where we call and text if you're cool.
Right, there you go.
All right. Well, if you liked what you heard today, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can find OTTB on Tap on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Feel free to reach out to us with interview candidates and topic suggestions on our website, OTTBontap.com. Sign up for our newsletter and be the first to find out about upcoming episodes, bonus content, and much more. We love hearing from you.
Bye.
Bye.